Hey folks, welcome to my summer deck edit, summer deck collection. I don't know what we're calling it, but it's the summer deck seasonal selection that I have chosen. And I will caveat this right off the bat that some of these do not look summery. It is a collection of things that sometimes feel reminiscent of summer to me. Some of them feel much more reminiscent to the summer that we're actually having over here in the UK, at least where I am. And then some of it is either a few non-negotiables or more of a reflection of just where I'm at and wanting to honour what I wanted to work with as well. So I've gone for around the same amount of decks as the spring one. And I really want to keep this seasonal edit going all the way through and do an autumn and a winter one as well, because I'm kind of trialing something in my practice by doing this, I guess. It's not that I'm not using other decks, and to be honest, I haven't included the myriad of animal oracles that I'll be working with, because then they would take up all of the time. And honestly, if you're on my Patreon, then you see them all the time. And if you're not, then you're probably not going to see them very much at all. So there's that. If you're wondering where I've been, let's just say that from now on, if I have disappeared for a period of time on YouTube or Instagram or really anywhere, that it was health related. I did have a nice, beautiful holiday for a week in the midst, but predominantly it's been health related. I have been able to retain the Patreon, but of course that means that I fall back from everywhere else. So I'm not going to bore you with that. That's what happened. I'm back. I really wanted to do the seasonal edit. I finally gave my space, well, it's not really a spring clean, I guess a summer clean, and here we are, and we're going to dive right into decks, and you will see 2 or 3 repeats. Other than that, mostly newbies. Newbies meaning for the seasonal edit, not new decks to me. Other than one, there is a new deck to me in here. So we'll shout that out when we get to it. So before we get into the first pairs, like my spring video, I'm going to be showing you these in their, I guess, their preferred pairings. Some of these will get used on their own still, some of them will get mixed with other decks, but this is a nice fun way to show two and get through them quicker. And also I have, for the most part, actually paired these and enjoyed them together. So that's what I'm showing you. And I won't be doing it what many of us lovingly call the 𝗵𝗁𝗫𝗁 way anyway, even though they look really good with 2 tarot and 1 oracle, but my coordination and stuff, you're going to have to trust me. All of these decks are a real mood together, energetically as well as visually. So here we've got, I think, my first repeat one, which is the Antique Anatomy Tarot, and this is the Ephemera, the mass market edition. And then my newish flower oracle. And I did a video about the flower oracle with the mushroom oracle, if you want to watch that. These have both got flowers in them, so they just feel like they match in that sense. Often the colour of the flowers end up syncing, or there's a strong colour theme throughout, and I really enjoy that because I do like working with the colour element in particular deck choices. I don't know why I tend to gravitate to these 2 different styles, but I do this a lot. I think it's just come down to that any of the Black and the Moon decks, which is the creator of this and so many, including 2 more that you're going to see today, and then any other kind of antique, vintage, tea-stained looking ones. So Wooden Tarot or the Maiden Oracle. I just feel like they're very versatile, so I use them with a lot. But the flower upon flower energy just felt very summer to me. whilst it has been very rainy and very grey, things are beautifully in bloom and everywhere is very lush and green. See, look at the pinks. And magic, wildness and remedy coming through with the Ace of Rods. It's just, yeah, it's just a vibe, right? Do you see how they mirror each other? And I've completely lost my train of thought already. But this, it speaks to me of summer. I really wanted to get more acquainted with the Flower Oracle, and whilst I have been enjoying it with Insomnia, I decided to mix it up a little bit, and I feel like I get to enjoy the colours in both. I get my tarot message, but then I find myself exploring more of the imagery, I guess, in the Flower Oracle when it is there. So they just feel like a very summery setting to me. And the other choice that didn't get picked this time around but felt very summery to go with this was the 𝗕𝗕scapes tarot, which I think I also showed in the Flower Oracle video. Next up, we have what happens when someone who has grungy, obscure, creepy to other decks tries to do a summer edit. And that is the Cursed Auguries tarot, and then the Coastal Curiosities, which I think most people are a fan of the Coastal Curiosities, and I believe this was in my spring edit as well. I just can't help myself. The mini version actually came on holiday with me as well. But there is blood and other stuff in this deck. So heads up, you might want to skip this one if you're not interested. And Coastal I shout out often on my channel, so you can see it at another point. One of the things that I've noticed is that I have chosen a lot of decks, for the most part, that have cardstock that's hand-friendly for me. And I think that that might be an unconscious layer at the moment because of pain levels and stuff. These two are a bit of a weird mix, and I've only tried them a couple of times, but I have enjoyed them together. I think that because the Coastals has quite a lot of visual layers to go from, that the very stark contrast in these, we'll try that again, the stark contrast between these pips, which are sometimes a little bit visually uninspiring to me, not thematically, just how they run along visually in the numbers. So like I really like this 3 with them all latched onto each other, but I don't always get that sensation from the minors in this deck. But there is a lot of colour and tone complements in the palettes, and as I say, because this one is busier, I feel like it brings something to the minors in this in particular, especially when a major or a cult doesn't come up. And I love, like, we've got this sort of, I want to say tan colour, and then we can see it here in the frog. So I feel like there's a lot of that going on, and those are the sort of subtleties that still to me bring kind of a visual joy to the table. But also the Cursed Auguries feels very much like a representation of aspects of the craft to me, at least my craft in particular. And I feel like it was probably sort of reflective of some of where I'm at the moment and how I'm feeling. And then there's quite a softness to the Coastal Curiosities. Like this feels like summery, springy, the lighter part of the year softness, whereas the Cursed Auguries feels, I don't want to say hard, although I'm sure it does to some, but quite raw, sometimes more challenging. Yeah, it's not like this is a dark deck to me, although thematically it's far more challenging. But I just feel like they've got a good balance, a good give and take. We've got the busy, we've got the spacious, we've got the lighter, and we've got the darker, and that blending between the two is just something that I feel like I'm really, really going to enjoy. Now, while aesthetically the Faeries Oracle, if I'm really going to give it a seasonal choice, although I feel like a lot of these decks work over multiple seasons, so most of them I don't really feel like they're resigned to just the one. But if I was going to give this a season, it it's giving me fall. I'm looking through this one, which is the Tarot of the Hidden Realm. It's actually giving me a little bit more summer than fall. It's quite colourful actually, and I still really wanted some Fae energy. I was really feeling drawn to the tarot in particular because it's an emotive one for me, and I feel like that's something that I want to draw out in some of my readings, a bit like how individuals, including myself, have discussed oracles like the Reclaim being very emotionally focused. The Tarot of the Hidden Realm does that for me and sort of manages to skirt past the sensation of reading with a people deck. I feel like they've done quite a good job for me, in my experience, of them still feeling like otherworldly beings. And so these two have always worked really, really well together. The Faeries Oracle is particularly chatty, like I said. I think this was also in a previous edit, so there is kind of that spring into summer decks that have traversed that. Hopefully this is not boring for everyone, but their pairings have changed anyway. But yeah, I was really getting the urge for Hidden Realm. I'm seeing a lot of people use 𝗕𝗏 sister. I was really excited about the 𝗕𝗏 sister. And then I wasn't, and now I'm really curious again, but I'm not buying decks at the moment. I have my birthday month next month anyway, so I guess I can have a rethink then. But I love Tarot of the Hidden Realm, and I feel like it shows up for me a lot when I'm having a bit of a difficult time. It's actually very kind to my particular experience of my conditions, I guess. I don't know why, but it certainly, when I was away in Greece, it really helped lower a lot of my pain sensations, and I guess I'm kind of grieving the sunshine a little bit, which sounds ridiculous. There are so many more other things, more important things that I could be grieving, but it doesn't feel like summer to me. This deck does, but it also feels like, as I say, it shows up for that, and I really wanted to carry on working with the Fae. In honesty, I didn't work with the Faeries Oracle too much in spring in the end. I really only come to it when I've got the space and capacity, but I'm feeling like it's time. These feel like a really good pairing to stop on as well. Aren't they great together? So if anyone's curious, the spring tarot that I had with them was also a Fae one. It was the Victorian Fairy, so that's what I've switched out. But I love the Victorian Fairies. It's a very different vibe to this one for me though. This one has maybe a stronger energy for me overall. Like I feel like I emote with this one in a different way, and so that felt like a good summer pick. And like I said, it's pretty colourful, right? Seeing these next two together like this is not going to do them justice. The way I have been pulling these is 4 cards. A tarot either side, and then an oracle just slightly above and slightly below. And the colours have been really complementary again. Colour does just tend to play in my favour when I do that with decks. Obviously not always, but it seems to be a common thing that comes up when I'm using decks. So what we have here is the Compendium of Constellations. I'm currently using my first edition. The artwork's slightly different. And this is the Mind's Eye Tarot, which I don't think I've shown on the channel yet. Props to US Games for doing linen cardstock. Thank you. If only some of the other decks were already in linen, but this is linen cardstock, and I am so thankful. My hands are so happy. The Mind's Eye Tarot very much reminds me of the type of fashion drawings I did. Oh, 1 second. Hello, anger and strength. Yes. Is it vibing with my Leo energy currently and where I'm at as well? Yes. I freaking love these two together. They probably seem like a really weird pairing, but they have been the ultimate mood, I assure you. So the Mind's Eye Tarot, I took fashion years ago before I, you know, decided what I wanted to be when I was an adult and all of that good stuff. And I used to draw a lot of images that looked similar to this, albeit not to the standard of this lovely creator. So to me, this deck is kind of nostalgic. It's very 𝗨𝗿𝗄𝗧, and it was me just going, my partner's offered to get me a treat. I'm just going to get something that I'm really curious about, that I'm really aesthetically drawn to, that looks like it would be a bit of fun, because let's face it, I have a fairly sizable collection. There wasn't anything mass market wise I was absolutely gasping for. So it was far more of an impulse in terms of it hadn't been on my radar for very long. It was such a good purchase. I don't feel like it lacks anything. Like I say, it doesn't necessarily expand upon the 𝗨𝗿𝗄𝗧 for me in any new and amazing ways in terms of the visual message that I'm getting. They feel quite similar to a 𝗨𝗿𝗄𝗧, but albeit far more in a type of style that I am willing to work with. But it inspires me because I love the artwork so much. I am just absolutely obsessed with the artwork. I'm really loving these as well. The fear that goes on when sometimes we make that 8 of Cups movement is just yes. I do think that this deck is an acquired taste, and like I say, I call it my fashion deck for a plethora of reasons, but I mean that in just the most loving way. I do not regret the purchase. I would buy it over and over and over and over again, and for the right person I would recommend it as well. But I do think that it's a particular flavour, right? There are a lot of 𝗨𝗿𝗄𝗧 clone-ish decks out there where they're very 𝗨𝗿𝗄𝗧 but much more stylised. And it gives me, and I can't take credit for this exact term because it was Lennox, I think, who said it to me, like dark summer vibes, and it is. But also all of these really beautiful, bright, lush shades in the midst of everything. And then with the Compendium of Constellations, it has a really beautiful mix of keywords, everything from challenging to uplifting to more neutral. And again, you've got this theme of sort of working with colour, which I don't really tend towards those very brightly coloured decks where there isn't some sort of black holding them out or some other neutral colour around them. So this is probably as summery looking as I get in terms of decks, and it's certainly more summery looking than how I dress. But the wanting to work with colour, because I'm seeing so much more variety of it around me in nature at the moment, and because I can't get out in it as much as I want to, it's sort of bringing that in. So I think that that's how some of these decks are summer decks, even though perhaps they're not to others. But like I said, there's very much that sort of floral theming in here as well. It's sort of floral meets sea, because there's a lot of shells and oceanic kind of vibes as well. Obviously the compendiums, well, it's constellations, but to me it doesn't feel like it's some kind of ethereal vibe, if that makes sense. So yeah, absolutely love these two together. I'm very excited to put this tarot to more use because I have just been enjoying it so much. My next summer pairing is much more of a this is where I'm at, and also you two will work together because I want to use you both. That's kind of how I came upon these, not gonna lie. Haven't used them together yet other than to test them earlier today, and I thought, yep, it's working fine for me. I mean, death, the wound and the gift. That's how we started out. So I felt like they would work together. This is the first edition Brady Tarot. It is the more summery one. I do have the second edition, which is larger and doesn't have the white external border. This is my favourite of the two. This is more hand-friendly, and I know it's not a popular take, but I actually prefer the smaller card size and the additional white border. So there you have it. So that's my summer version of the Brady, as it were. And then this, you can't get either. Sorry. This is, I can never remember how the title goes fully. Is it Postcards of the Liminal Space? Something like that. There's a second deck that I think perhaps you can get. Or it looks like the Morgan's Tarot, which you could also look for, which is a tarot but seems like an oracle to me. I don't know, I don't have it. I haven't worked with this in an age and was really feeling the urge to. Again, it gives me quite a spacious, clear, to the point vibe. And the Brady is, I like to work with my animal decks. This is one of my favourite for those who don't know. I'm liking these two together. Also recently I did what ended up being a 2-hour, I mean glorious for us, hopefully for the listeners as well. I featured on Wildly Tarot podcast, and as well as pulling cards for the listeners and doing a bit of chat about animal gnosis and some of my practice in particular, 𝗵𝘁 and I spoke about the Brady Tarot. There is a 3rd edition coming to Kickstarter sometime in the near-ish future, as well as an oracle in the making. So just in case you're watching this thinking, you're making me angry with all of this. I mean, I'm not here to sell to you anyway. This is, for me, a fun way of kind of updating you about my practice as well, because I haven't really been doing that of late. I need an animal deck in my selection. I do use animal oracles all of the time, and at the moment on Patreon I do a monthly animal and tarot feature as well, which originally wasn't going to be every month but kind of has been for the time being because everyone's been so receptive to it. So I haven't been as chomping at the bit for as many animal decks as usual, but yeah, when I got this one out when I was doing the podcast, because I had both out so that I had the visuals to kind of inspire me and talk about, I thought, right, let's keep it out for a while. And Son of Horns, be your own daddy. I'm digging it. It's giving me self-love vibes. You know the kind. Oh, a split spirit for anguish. Yes. I mean, I'm not going to lie, aside from the Brady Tarot being somewhat colourful for me, there's very little, I guess, summary about them in terms of either visual or energetically, I might argue. I don't know. The Liminal Space one is very fun, especially because of some of the keywords like elevate. Not all of it is affirmative, but it does give me a more playful, lighter half of the year vibe as well. I guess those are kind of energies that I tend to feel because I am, like I say, a bit of a sunshine baby, so that's kind of how I'm coming at these. But I'm quite enjoying them together, even trying them now and seeing them together still. I feel like they're working. Perhaps it's not the best visual in the world, but again, it doesn't have to be for me. I've definitely moved past that with some decks when the energy just feels right, you know, when the messages just really speak to each other. So I'm really interested. What do you think of these two together? Because I feel like that's maybe the stranger pairing. Now we only have 3 left, 2 of which you can see. They're both oracle, and whilst I will likely use these together to test them out, I have put them together to make it quicker and visually interesting. They will probably get used with some of the other decks as well, or just on their own. They are 2 absolute chonkers, and as many people know, my Memento Mori is curated down, so not all of the cards are in use at any one time. I think I have around 110, 115-ish in use at any one time, and then this is the Birds Oracle 1 and 2. I don't know if you can get this oracle anymore. I am quite a big birder. It's just something that I've come into as I've got older. It was something that I was brought up around by my great-grandfather. I really wish he could be around now so I could share some of it with him in person, because he would be absolutely elated. But yes, I've got my little garden binoculars, these little micro ones, and various apps to identify or help identify their sounds as well. My books, you know, I'm an animal nerd anyway, so the bird thing is fun, but I really wanted to get the deck out. It has birds from all over the world, so these aren't always local to me, but for some reason, even when I'm working with the animal gnosis with the Patreons, which tends to be the dominant part of my animal practice now, because I'm now doing a practice that I used to do solo in a way that hopefully other people can access, utilize and engage with it. So I really dedicate a lot of time to it, and it takes up a lot of that animal space for me, other than kind of day-to-day wildlife spotting and engagement and stuff. But I feel like working with the Birds Oracle just feels a little bit more light and accessible for some reason. I don't know, more day-to-day. In contrast, my Memento Mori is just a non-negotiable. The Memento Mori is just on my altar or on my working desk or on my fireplace or something, always there. So it's never actually put away anymore. It's too big a part of my practice. I just don't see it happening. And it gets used for a lot of other things in which some of my other divination cards don't. So yeah, nothing particularly seasonal about this, although you totally could, and it would be fun, I bet, to curate a seasonal Memento Mori if you're someone who either wants to curate your main deck down, or you're like me and you have all of the add-ons and the Patreon cards and stuff. You could totally change it per season. I've shared, I can't remember if it was on Instagram a long time ago, a video about curating. More recently, I took people on Patreon on the Coven tier through quite an intimate exploration of curating it, as if they were just sort of sitting down with me as I did it, and spoke about some of the symbols and the reasons. So I have spoken about that process a lot, but also I know that Claire on her emails has spoken about curating them for like particular focuses like spirit communication. So yeah, I do like using symbol decks to expand upon my animal messages. I have used tarot for that, and I do regularly use tarot for it, but not as much as decks like the Memento. And so I did think it could be quite fun to pull a bird and then sort of expand upon it with a Memento and see what nuances come through, you know, really try and get the bird to speak through the Memento deck. So I intend to give that a go as well. So perhaps I'll need to do like a roundup video or just a practice video at some point once summer's passed to let you know how that goes. But I'm pretty excited about it. And if I don't know what the bird is, the books are good because they tell you exactly what birds they are. And then I learn something new. It's not necessarily that I have a big, deep and meaningful connection with every single one of them, because I do tend to build better connections with animals that are familiar for one reason or another. A lot of that's to do with native now, but some of it is to just do with myth that I'm very fond of over the years, or animals that I loved when I was younger, you know, that kind of thing. But we stop with our turkey and our angel. My final choice is my prototype of the European Goddesses and Spirits Oracle deck. This does feel summery to me in terms of the colours, in terms of the aesthetics. Certainly not each goddess or deity, spirit, they all have their very individual energies. But one of the things that I have been enjoying doing with this deck is pulling one originally it was every once a week, because I wanted to get a few under my belt, so to speak, in practice before I reviewed the deck, which has since been successfully kickstarted. I don't know when it's going out into the world just yet, but I'm sure that you can keep an eye on that if you follow Johanna. Like I say, I'm very fortunate I have the prototype. Since then, it's been more sort of every 2 to 3 weeks. And also, if you watched my spring edit, then you'll know that I was working with the Weaver's Oracle. I'm just about to finish up my work with the current Weaver, who I've had out for the longest time. It's probably the one that I showed you in the last video. I can't remember the name, and currently something's in front of it because I'm using it to charge what I'm recording with. but the keyword is broken. So I'm about to put that away, and instead of getting another weaver out straight away, I am actually going to work with this solely and continue that kind of every couple of weeks exploration with this deck, because I was really enjoying learning about each of these individuals. Some of them are very fitting for my practice, especially obviously the Norse ones as an example, but also I just enjoyed learning about some of the others and considering little rituals I could do that are inspired by them, or ways that the divinatory message just could be taken in during that week or two. And yeah, it's quite a colourful deck for me, which again probably tells you everything you need to know about what kind of decks I go for, because I'm not even sure this is considered a colourful deck. I don't know, you tell me. But I've enjoyed using it a lot, and I'm very fond of Johanna. I'm very fond of her work as well. So I suppose there's that nice familiarity. There's something about the deck that just feels like it's a welcome and friendly addition in my practice right now. Don't get me wrong, I have loved the weavers, and the two things do not feel similar to me in that way, but it's just the dedicated way in which I work with them. I don't think I want to do both at the same time, so I've decided give the weavers a little bit of a break. Maybe they'll come back in at some point in the summer, who knows. In the last seasonal edit, so the spring one, I had the Compendium of Witches. I can see that working in summer. Again, it's not that it feels sort of boxed into spring, but just fancied that change up, you know. So yeah, this is the final summer deck for my seasonal edit. I appreciate that Nyx is not giving summer daytime vibes, at least, although it looks like what's wrapped around her is an incredibly clear sky, which I have to say, summer skies at night, they give some of the best colours when they're clear. I don't know, I've been having a whole thing really quickly before I finish up. I have returned to cloud gazing in a big way, or you might call it cloud scrying. You can call it what you want, witchy, non-witchy. It's giving me life. It's something that I used to do when I was really young with my stepmom. We used to read the clouds all the time together. We're both very into stuff like that, you know. It's just so beautiful. The sky is such a tapestry in and of itself, and I feel like there's two things that I've fallen back in love with in a really big way at the moment, and one of them I just can't have access to, which is the ocean. You were signed up to my newsletter, then I gave a sort of just a tiny snippet of the absolute love affair that I had with the ocean when I was away, and I think that I kind of blocked that part of me off because I don't have easy access to it, and it's a whole thing with my mobility and stuff over here. But for a whole week, me and the ocean felt like one, and it was just glorious. But also, yeah, the sky, not just at night time either. I've just been taking cloud pictures left, right and centre, and every single cloud picture feels different to me. And yet if someone scrolled through my phone who wasn't that way inclined, they'd probably find it really boring. But honestly, to me, it's as exciting as when my friend does tea leaf reading, which I love, but I don't know, I'm so silly. I could just use any cup, but I don't have a cup that I like for it yet. And yeah, hey ho, I've been cloud scrying. So that's kind of my summer thing. And to be honest, as immobile as I've been getting at points, I can lay on the floor in the living room and look out through the French doors, or crawl out into the garden, put myself on one of the garden chairs and enjoy the sky. Like, it's one of the things that I can do pretty much no matter what. So yeah, it did start in spring, but it very much is going strong in the summer. So if you're wondering what's going on with my practice, because I don't know when my next video is going to be now, I have to prioritise my Patreon stuff, and recording is causing a lot of pain. If I can, I'll do a practice update at some point. Otherwise, I don't know, check me out on the other things. Also, if you're listening to this little ramble and I include it in, I'm really curious because I could really use your feedback. People who are interested in the offerings I do that are behind a paywall, so if that's not you, then that's completely okay and you can ignore this bit. I'm curious because a few people have been asking me about YouTube memberships. I have a Patreon membership. It's why I don't do a YouTube one. And if I did a YouTube one, it would really just be releasing some of the Patreon videos that I do, either from the archive or from the current as I film them. So you would kind of be getting a little bit less because you wouldn't necessarily be getting the written content. However, if you are one of the people who feel like a YouTube membership is something that interests you and you're not on the Patreon, not because of the money, but because you don't like Patreon for whatever reason that is, please let me know, because I'm quite willing to replicate the work and try and make something happen. But to me, it doesn't really make sense unless people are interested. So that's kind of where I stand on that, because I just see, I've got a Patreon, people will come, they will find me there. But yeah, let me know, please. Thank you for hanging out, and hopefully I'll see you all soon. Also, if you do summer edits, let me know because I want to come and watch them. Okay, thank you. Bye.